Alrighty, let me place this right here real quick. Okay, so I know this video is a bit late. Let me just the old microphone here. Very sloppy, not professional at all. Um, but anyways, I just want to appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching with me on Saturday. For those of you who stopped by, I very much appreciate you coming by, stopping by, leaving a like, saying hi and what's up is always really appreciated. So thank you all who came by and watched. Hoping to keep it up and increasing those numbers and whatnot. But anyways, let's talk about the card here. Okay, so first thing we have here is Nurullo Aliev versus Joe Solecki. This was a pretty boring fight, if I'm going to be completely honest. Nothing really of note. Nice little unanimous decision, I believe, just kind of holding him on the ground and doing his Eastern European thing of grinding the guy against the fence until can't really do it anymore. Fatima Klein versus Victoria Dudikova was second round TKO for Fatima Klein, and Victoria Dudikova was so upset at the end of the fight that there is video of her slapping her coach. Pretty crazy aftermath. Probably one of the funnier things that we've seen after a post-fight fight, pretty much post-fight after a fight. Words early in the morning for me. Anyways, one of the craziest things we've seen after a fight happens, a fighter slapping their own coach. Don't think I've ever seen any other fighter do that. But anyways, we move to Bruno Lopez versus Magomed Gaziergulov. This was also kind of another kind of boring fight. They had some good moments back and forth on the feet, but nothing was of consequence really. So again, it was another kind of grapple fest kind of decision here. Ernesta Caracati versus Nicole Clary. Again, that was another little bit of a grind fest, but also the problem with that one too is that a lot was not happening on the feet. Um, I don't think anyone was wobbled really or like hurt really badly. There was a little bit of blood, but nothing crazy. Um, yeah. Now, Jacoby Smith versus Preston Parsons. This was a crazy finish for Jacoby Smith. I believe it was kind of not really like a hook, but it was just like a a curving two punch, a curving two. I guess you could call that a hook. But the way he threw it was more like that than like this or whatever. I don't know if that showed really weird, but more like this than like this. But hey, still a hook. Still a two technically or whatever you want to call it. That ended up getting the job done, and it was pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. A little bit of ground and pound at the end, and yeah, finished it up pretty fast. Diago Moses versus Trey Ogden. Uh, kind of boring a little bit. I'm surprised. I'm surprised Diago Moses got it done. Um, Trey Ogden doesn't look like he knew what he was doing really, and was just having a lot of weird moments. Nothing really notable happened out of that. Again, one of those fights that has no purpose really. Marco Tulio versus Ihor Pretoria. Ihor Pretoria is done with the UFC. Let's get him to BKFC. Let's get him to PFL. Let's get him anywhere but the UFC right now. Because he was given a huge layup by fighting Shogun Rua and has not done anything with that since. So get him out of there. He's not UFC material. It's time we start looking at other organizations for him. Now we have Felipe Munez versus Jose Johnson. This was a nice little slick finish for him. I honestly thought he was going to have some troubles with that height, but he used it against him and ended up creating a great armbar in the first round. And yeah, great for Felipe Munez. Nothing too crazy as far as armbars go. Like no crazy transition or anything like that. Jose Johnson was just clearly outmatched in the grappling department. And he did what he did. Punali, I still don't know how to say this name. Punali versus Punali Soriano knocked out Ross Medic. badly, so badly in the first round. Ooh, this was a brutal knockout. Kind of out of nowhere too for Benelli Serrano. I think a lot of people had Medic getting the win over on this one, but he came out and landed a devastating. I believe it was a right hand. I'll have to go back and watch that, but absolutely devastating right hand. Um, and yeah, poor Uras Medic. Horrible way to go out first round. 31 seconds too, which is never very good. Christian Rodriguez versus Austin Bashi. Now, Austin Bashi was diving for legs like his life depended on it, and he got a little bit of control time. But the issue is that if you're just looking to hold and control, I think we're getting to the stage now in the UFC where they're not fearing that. At least if you're not, Dagestani or Russian. But anyways, I think damage is starting to really matter a lot more now. And Austin Bashi's face was getting welted up pretty badly by Christian Rodriguez. Whenever there was a time for Christian Rodriguez to land on the feet, he would land very devastatingly, and Austin Bashi would be throwing punches at nothing, essentially. And while he was throwing punches at nothing, he would shoot for a takedown. He would get in deep on it, and then Christian Rodriguez had some amazing defense. And this guy Austin Bashi, he's IBF placer, bronze medalist, or something like that. So his grappling is supposed to be some of the best that we've seen in the division. But Christian Rodriguez was not having it at all. He was stuffing every takedown, putting his hand on the head, pushing his head down like everyone should do. It's a very simple thing. When you're defending a takedown, I don't understand how it's like so lost along so many fighters, but when you're getting a takedown, let's pretend like it wasn't loud or anything. But when someone's head is like to the outside, like they're shooting a double from the outside and their head is like to the outside, you push their head down. When their head is pushed down, they 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 go in the same direction that their head is, which surprisingly enough is also down. But anyways, this oopsies. Um, jeez, wipe that off. This is not really well. This is not really done professionally right now. But anyways, when you're pushing down on the head, they can't go anywhere except down because they're looking down. Their head, their momentum is going down because you're pushing their head down. Same thing with pushing the head up or to the side or any other direction than what they're intending to do, which is to go forward and get that momentum to take you down. And Austin Bashi was having every takedown stuffed. And if it wasn't getting stuffed, Christian Rodriguez was getting up and he was scrambling and he was winning a lot of scrambling positions simply by just stepping over on a lot of positions where, someone tries to pull you into them and you just step over past the guard and stuff like that. I could get a little bit more technical with it as far as some of the scrambles go, but there's kind of no point. They scrambled really well for Christian Rodriguez, and he beat Austin Bashi 29-28. I thought they were going to give Austin Bashi the decision, honestly, because he was having a lot of control time, but I'm so glad they gave it to Christian Rodriguez. Definitely much more deserving. He fought very entertainingly. Austin Bashi, if he fights in that style against someone, he's not going to get very much fans, especially if he's not finishing anybody and he's getting thrown off pretty easily. And he looked like the more in shape guy. Like he looked pretty shredded. He looked built. So that's not a good look for him. All right, now we get to super duper controversial Roman Kopylov versus Chris Curtis. This was absolutely crazy. Really controversial. I feel like a lot of people are gonna say that he should have been given an extra second or whatever, or not an extra second, but he should have been given the benefit of the doubt that he could defend himself because there was a second left on the time. But at the end of the day, the ref does not look at the clock. He looks at the fighters and what is happening in the fight. It is, if there was if there was no time limits at all, I mean, then the ref would have stopped the fight. So the fact that there is a time limit doesn't really mean anything. Like, doesn't matter if it's at the end of the round or whatever and stuff like that. Chris Curtis was very angry, kind of understandably so. He's had a very, very tough career of having split decisions or getting eye poked or having some sort of injury or just, something happening more than just fighting in the fight, basically, to him losing. He's had a couple of good knockouts and stuff, a couple good fights, but other than that, he's been pretty mid to low tier for the middleweight division. And I think him being unranked is pretty fitting for him, especially for his fighting style. I mean, you cannot just sit here and do this. I'm sure he'd beat the absolute crap out of me in sparring and stuff like that. But for high level UFC fighters, I just don't think with someone as dynamic as Kopylov, you should be standing here taking this. Sure, you can roll with the. I'm sure he's really good at rolling with punches, seeing all the punches, and absorbing the punches really well, turning away from them and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if Roman Kopylov lands a punch and it makes a loud thudding sound, guess what? The judges are going to score that against you. And I didn't really have Chris Curtis winning that fight, honestly. I know Kopylov was cut open and he looked slightly more damaged than Chris Curtis, but at the end of the day, he was landing a lot more strikes, it felt like, and he was definitely taking that third round over. Um, and unfortunately, Chris Curtis, whenever he was landing good punches, he just would stop. And he had a lot of success in the second round because his coach was telling him to keep moving forward, keep throwing those punches, keep throwing combos and stuff like that. Like don't let up on the gas. Like if he had not let up on that gas in the second round or the beginning of the third round, he probably could have finished Kopylov, honestly, because Kopylov was getting really really tired. And it wasn't until I'd say like little close to mid of the third round that Kopylov really started to turn it on and throw a lot at Chris Curtis. And then when Chris Curtis was taking those big shots in the third round, I mean, he wasn't really looking good taking them. He'd get stopped and stunned and like do a little wave back and stuff like that. And you can't be doing that. We gotta be dodging them. We gotta be out of the backing up, out of the way. We can't be just sitting here absorbing punches, getting hit and stuff like that. That's not ideal. That's not something that's going to end up working at the top of the division. Um, Unless you have a better body. Like the reason why Sean Strickland can do that is because he has a longer frame and a longer build, and he leans back. He leans back into punches, and he really uses his shoulders and really leans back and a little bit of head movement. Meanwhile, Chris Curtis, he's just sitting there like this, just high guard, just covering up, getting beat up. It's not really good. I don't think. I think Chris maybe has two more fights in the UFC. If he loses his next one, I don't see him being in the UFC anymore, honestly, because I think that's like his second loss now in a row, because his last loss was to Brendan Allen, which was also controversial as well. He's had a lot of controversy in his fights, which isn't good. There really shouldn't be a lot of extra going on in your fights, for something like this. Yeah, absolutely terrible to happen at 4:59. I mean, literally one more second, he would have been fine. So, I kind of understand why he's upset, but at the same time, it was not a good look for him during the fight. So he's got to work on his body language. Let's dodge some of those punches. I like Chris Curtis, but I just don't think his style really works for him at the high level of the UFC. Maybe boxing. I think his style in boxing would probably work really, really well, but MMA, with how dynamic people are, it's not good. And then we have, on to our next fight, Santiago Ponzinibbio TKO'd Carlson Harris at the end of the third round. This was a very sketchy fight for Ponzinibbio. He was getting dropped a couple times, and each time he was dropped, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it. And he would get up and he would start, throwing combos back and stuff like that. And at first in the fight, Carlston Harris, his body was moving. He was nonstop moving. He was just twitching all over the place, just getting ready to throw a counter back. And Ponzinibbio ate a couple of those hard counters, but he got up, he continued on, and at the end of the 3 minutes into the, I guess 2 minutes into the third round or whatever, lands a devastating strike and knocks Carlston down, and is able to get the TKO. Really great for Santiago Ponzinibbio. He said he wants to start a title run. I don't think that's very realistic. I think if anything, he probably needs to win one more fight to get a ranked fight. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I don't see him beating really anyone in the top 15, unfortunately. Really great fight for him, though. I'm glad him having so many bad fights and also controversies in his fights, kind of like Chris Curtis. He was able to get a good win and get back in the winning circle. So great for him. I hope he wins his next fight. I like Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think he has a great fighting style, and I think he has a nice character about him too. And then we get into our final main card fight. It was actually pretty good. It wasn't that bad. I was really afraid that it was going to be just grinding against the cage and just holding. Luckily, it wasn't. Mackenzie Dern, well, it was actually kind of a little bit in some parts of the fight, but Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Ribas, Mackenzie Dern, when she put Amanda Ribas in this armbar, at first, it looked like she completely lost it. And she had it set up really well with the legs secured around the head, like how she had it with them locked up. And she had a figure four on her arm. I don't know how to really show that accurately without another arm or whatever, but she had a figure four on her arm. At first she lost it, but then she got adjusted back into mount, and then Amanda Ribas just sat there kind of and wasn't really like, I mean, she was fighting back, obviously. You're not gonna not fight back. She didn't really know it like she knew what to do. Didn't throw up her legs or do really any sort of good defense as far as it went. And then Mackenzie Dern was able to readjust, get that arm again, sit into it, and then as soon as she was able to flip Amanda Ribas over, that's when the armbar got really sunk in. She secured it really nice and got a tap. So I'm really glad the main card. I'm really glad the main fight on the main card ended up being a finish. I was really worried that we were going to be starting 2025 with a split decision or a majority decision. So actually, a pretty good card, pretty solid little card. Was it, obviously the best card fight nights and stuff like that? Absolutely not. This was definitely, I'd say, a good 7 out of 10. You know, it would have been bigger if we had maybe one or two ranked dudes on here who had some like meaningful fights or something like that, and they got finishes. But hey, we got some contenders with some finishes, some contenders that were shut down. So really good. I wouldn't say like really good, but a good card overall. And we got a little bit of headlines from it, from the Ropen Kopylov versus Chris Curtis. So we got some attention to this card. Wasn't too bad. But imagine how much better this card would have been if it was at any small venue other than the Apex. Just absolute shame that we have to end up getting this as in the Apex. But hey, that's how it is sometimes. Unfortunately, you can't always get what you want. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Sorry for posting this video kind of late. Should have done this on Sunday, honestly, or Saturday night and just gone through it. I was so tired on Sunday. I literally slept from 12 to 3 p.m. Then just kind of did nothing the rest of the day. So trying to get better on getting the motivation to just do it. Just go and do things. I'm doing this early in the morning before I go to work right now. That's why you see the messy bun and stuff like that. And maybe the slightly lower tone of voice than what I'm used to talking in, but anyways, I appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. You have a great day. I'll be posting a video hopefully tomorrow or on Tuesday, or I mean on tomorrow, which is Tuesday, or on Wednesday, talking about the UFC 311 card breakdown, and I'm gonna come up with a MMA story to talk about tonight, and make a nice little video for y'all. So again, thank you for watching, much appreciated. Sorry for it being kind of unedited and a little bit out of wonk, but we're getting these videos uploaded and we're getting them out to you. So have a great day.